The latest Pompey news, updates every day from the Pompey Sound news desk.
Now, someone's been laying into Connor Chaplin, saying that he's been bang average so far. The problem is, the person saying that is Connor Chaplin.
I've been bang average so far, to be honest. I want to impact the team more than I have done, but, at the same time, I am realistic. I know the expectation is massive in terms of excitement coming back to the club, and I felt that as well. But I need to be realistic too. It is going to take time to learn how to impact the team in terms of the way the lads were playing. I've played in an Ipswich side, with the same players, for the last 4 years. I know them inside out. It's going to take some time to learn how individuals want to play, and vice versa. That is normal procedure. On Saturday I felt good. I felt more comfortable with the shape. I was more comfortable with a lot of things. But that's normal, it's just time, it's just games, it's very fresh, very early. I want to be cautious and not be too harsh on myself. I need to be realistic in terms of this still being early doors. But I am loving coming into training every day, loving it with the lads, such good lads. It's a great group to be with. And everyone works hard for each other.
Yeah, you get a sniff, don't you, there, of something that John Messino is repeatedly saying about the virtues of having Chaplin back at Fratton Park. It's not what he has the potential to do on the pitch, and he's the first to admit that he hasn't fulfilled that potential just yet, but he's talking about how he intends to go about achieving it. But with the character to say, I've been bang average. What a phrase. I've been bang average so far, to be honest. And that is being honest, isn't it? And if you've got that kind of character, that kind of personality, you're going to appeal to everybody else in the dressing room, because you're not the £6 million rated. He is rated at 6 million. He's valued at 6 million quid. Did you know that? Transfer market, and they know what they're talking about. They're huge. They're German. If they say he's worth 6 million quid, he's worth 6 million quid. That means he ought to get whichever hook in the changing room he wants for his jacket. But he's not like that. He wants to be a £6 million player again, which is what he achieved at Ipswich. But he realistically, as an experienced pro, says it will take a little bit of time, but I know I can get there. And you have to believe him. Bang average so far. What a guy. It's good news that Southampton fans are waking up with tears on their pillow. One of their semi-official fan zone sites, Saints Marching, has put together this piece of gobbledygook which really translates as being 4-year-old speak for Mummy, Portsmouth are better than us.
Southampton have been humiliated by Portsmouth in 2 international break-related statistics, which must be brought to a halt. Championship should have been Southampton's language of victories, but with 5 days into October, the Saints are polishing their catalogue with draws, as if shielding losses was the whole point of it. Viewing from a fan's angle, it's a slow walk down into second-tier mediocrity. Now a plethora of Premier League's fallen boys faced championship hardships for years, whereas Southampton only had 2 off months. But do note the reputation hasn't dipped, it has dived past Saints, grudge rivals, Portsmouth. Be real, at St Mary's the notion was never to beware of the Pompeys, when and in which shape they come. Before walking down the tunnel, they had grasped a 2-point foothold over Will Still's team, and this isn't limited to the first international break. Saints slipping behind Portsmouth's spot can't be acceptable every time. In October's current gameless duration, Portsmouth are 1 step ahead, and that was avoidable not once, but in 2 places. Southampton pocketing a second goal over Derby would have asserted an opposite 1-point dominance, and Middlesbrough overpowering Portsmouth was just as fine a thought. One of the 2 undefeated championship groups until Saturday had to turn Portsmouth into light work, but Borough didn't. They had Saints requesting their luck for them to not split points at St Mary's, but no, Middlesbrough stood generous only for our neighbours. Learning these upper hands Portsmouth are sweeping from Southampton, the club must pledge to stop looking weaker. Next international break will start ticking 1 month from present, thus, the Saints must pen down plans and game styles to surpass the Blues to never fall back again. Point is Portsmouth don't have a playoff aim to pursue, this Saints fans can affirm, henceforth, racing with top-table giants like Coventry and Middlesbrough can be the needle mover for Southampton's ship.
God, what a piece. I mean, of course, whoever wrote it is not a professional journalist, not by any stretch of the imagination. But to write such convoluted gobbledygook and use phrases that simply are impenetrable and get in the way of conveying any kind of actual meaning means that you have to rely on guesswork in order to understand. I mean, right at the beginning, you get this: Championship should have been Southampton's language of victories, but with 5 days into October, the Saints are polishing their catalogue with draws. The Championship being Southampton's language of victories, but they are polishing their catalogue with draws. And on it goes on. Saints slipping behind Portsmouth's spot can't be acceptable every time in October's current gameless duration. In anybody else's language, that's the international break. Southampton didn't score a second goal, or could have scored a second goal. They could have pocketed a second goal. Saints must pen down plans and game styles to pass the Blues and never fall back. I mean, you can see what the writer is saying. They don't like looking at the table and seeing that they're behind Pompey, actually a good way behind Pompey. We aren't that bothered. We don't really bother too much about what's going on down there. But when they allow us to luxuriate in their own misery, then we're just going to have to take a quick look at it, have a quick laugh, and think about the next game.
Former Pompey boss Peter Storey pays glowing tribute to Milan Mandaric.
Pompey was Milan's favourite club. It was the people around him. He liked living down here by the sea. He had that flat in the city and could go to restaurants or walk around the harbour, and he'd stop and talk to people. When you look at some of these people in the modern game now, Milan always had time for the fans. He wouldn't say, "Sorry, I am busy." He would always chat to them. That was one of his strengths. He very rarely went on the team coach. I would drive him to away games, and, following one victory, we came back and Milan wanted to go for dinner at the Pizza House restaurant, run by his friend Giuseppe. We walked in and the whole restaurant stood up to applaud him, and he loved that. He just loved that. The Pompey fans were so important to him. People singing at games, "There's only one Milan." He was so proud of that. Not many owners of football clubs can say they have that connection with supporters. I will always remember him saying to Harry and myself, "Let's the three of us work together to see if we can get this club into the Premier League." And we did. He was so proud of that achievement and so proud of the supporters. Winning the FA Cup in 2008 was a fantastic achievement, no doubt about that, but it's 6 games. Compare that to winning the First Division title. What a season that was, the players we had, the winning record, and being the best team by an absolute distance. Milan always said Pompey was one of his greatest achievements in football, and what he achieved there reflects that.
He used to come every time he was invited to my local branch of the Portsmouth Supporters Club, and they asked me to chair the Supporters Club meetings from time to time. And Milan used to show up, not flashy, but wearing the most superbly fitting suit and a lovely watch. It wasn't ostentatious, but it probably set him back a few bob. And he was immaculate, always immaculate, and charming and so polite to absolutely everybody. And I just remember one occasion which illustrates the bond that he had between himself and Portsmouth's everyday fans, if you like. We would get an attendance of, sometimes 100, one time nearly 200 Portsmouth fans who would travel across our city to see him, talk to him, listen to him, and feel part of the club, really. And I just remember so vividly, they would the supporters would ask him questions, and I would say, put your hand up if you want to ask a question. And we got the usual questions from the usual suspects, and that's absolutely fine. He dealt with them all. Why haven't we already won the Champions League sort of questions? And he would deal with it. I asked him, how do you buy a football club such as Portsmouth? And he reached inside his suit jacket pocket, and he took out a chequebook, an ordinary chequebook, just the same as everybody used to have in the days of chequebooks, okay? And he opened it, and from his other pocket, he took out a fountain pen, nice fountain pen, not ostentatious, not, gold or anything, just a nice fountain pen. And he opened the chequebook, and he wrote, pay so-and-so, so-and-so, £4 million. And then he wrote £4 million in the little box. He didn't sign it, but he held it up so that everybody could see. That's all there is to it. There's no fancy footwork or financial wheelings and dealings taking weeks and months and years involving expensive lawyers. He decided to buy Pompey, so he wrote out a cheque. But the other thing that I think really illustrates what the man is all about, at the other end of being an incredibly successful business person, wasn't he? I think he owned his own island or something off the coast of Florida. But whatever. Extremely rich, but so down to earth. So, one time at one of these meetings, and he must have attended half a dozen of them, more than anybody else. We asked lots of people. We did get Peter Storey once, who we heard just now, talking about Milan. He was a good guest. He totally appreciated the bottle of wine we bought him with a blue rosette to say thank you. And he said it was nice not being constantly berated by the fact that we haven't won the Champions League yet and we're not buying £20 million players, which is what they get a lot of. But back to Milan. He fielded a question from, I'm going to say an elderly Portsmouth supporter who I knew quite well. Sid, we'll call him. And Sid was very well turned out, very smart. He was a plumber by trade, or a heating engineer, whatever they're called now and whatever they were called then. It was a one-man show. He had his own little van. He was nearer 80 than 70, but still would take on jobs as long as he could cope with them. And he wanted to say to Milan Mandaric, thank you. And he so meant it. He said, I've been a Pompey supporter now for far longer than I care to remember, and we've had some dark days. He said, and I've almost been reduced to tears. He said, but you have inspired all of us to dream all over again and of great things and let our nightmares go. So I just want to say thank you for that. So Milan thanked him, and we moved on to the next question, which again was from somebody wanting to know why we hadn't won the Champions League yet. And about an hour later, Milan said, well, I think I better go because it's getting late and I haven't eaten yet or something. So he got up to go, he got a big round of applause, and he hopped down from the little stage that we were on, and he started to make his way up the aisle that separated the two banks of seats that we'd laid out. And then he stopped, because he'd reached the row of seats where Sid was sitting. And Sid was sitting right in the middle. And Milan turned and he started making his way, saying, excuse me, excuse me, excuse me, past the people who were sitting in the same row as Sid. I knew where he was going. He got to Sid, and Sid pulled himself up to his feet. Sid wasn't a big man. Milan was a big man. And I saw Milan grasp Sid's hand with both his hands and shake his hand and talk to him intimately and passionately, and then put both hands on Sid's shoulders and sort of give him that intimate, slightly shuddery, shaky thing. And I think he would have hugged him if that had been right, but he didn't. And he bowed his head in respect. This is Milan Mandaric, bowed his head to Sid in total respect and turned and excuse me, his way past the fans in that row and off and out and into the darkness. And when I say I've never come across a better owner than Milan Mandaric, I'm going to say this, honestly, I've never come across a better man than Milan Mandaric. May he rest in peace.